guys, this is Kristen with Collision Hub, and we're at the SEMA show, and we wanted to deliver a little tech training about something that we don't talk too often about: finishing and dressing welds, the importance of it, what it has to do with not only just the quality look of your repair, but keeping that contamination out of those welds. Now, Larry Montanez from P&L Consultants is going to take us through this, and Sean Collins from 3M. We're going to go through the whole finishing process, let them walk you through how to do it, and guys, I'm going to let y'all have it and see if we can get some education out of SEMA.
Thanks a lot. All right, guys, obviously safety is always a big factor when we do things, so put our safety goggles on. This particular piece here is a boron alloyed steel B-pillar from a Chevy Volt, and as you can see, this was donated to us for this particular video from iCar. They were nice enough to give it to Sean and I, and you can see that they took the outer panel off already. And obviously we have some weld nuggets on here that have been ground around. You can still see down close in here that you have the outer metal piece with actually some of the paint. And I'm just going to turn this around so maybe we get a better shot of it. And we can see the little white spots on each one of these. So we're going to try and get those off nice and clean. And then I'm also going to do a grind through on the B-pillar. This new tool from 3M that's over here, it's a file belt sander, and this particular tool has a rotating belt that comes around, and it's going to rip through the material pretty quickly and leave a nice smooth area to cut through the material. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grind down some of these welds, and then we're also going to show you how to finish off the welds so that we have a nice smooth area. Just to show real quickly, this is the area I'm working on, and we can see that it's already started to take out some of the material very, very quickly versus this side where we didn't touch that one yet. I'm going to continue on with this, and you just want to lightly go through it. Now we can see the outline of the original factory spot weld, the material that's left over. This is generally a pretty good spot to be at. At this point, not to cut through to the hose panel, which is this panel here, we just want to remove the nugget. We're going to switch tools real quick, because this tool is good for ripping material off very, very quickly. We're going to switch to a little small angle grinder with the 3M roll lock material on it, and we usually suggest an 80 grit paper is good enough. Once again, when you go to grind on anything, your elbow is the most important spot for keeping the angle grinder perpendicular to the material you're working on. So I'm going to keep this right here, and we're just going to lightly go across it. Now we have the area nice and flat, so we have a nice flat surface for our next panel that's going to come on here. And we're going to finish off this area with some 80 grit sandpaper right on a regular DA that'll smooth out the area. As we can see, this particular area right here is perfectly smooth. There's actually a little indentation there from the factory spot weld on that particular piece of boron here, but the area is nice and smooth. We didn't dig any material out of the hose panel. So this area right here would be very good now to put another panel on and spot weld right next to this particular area in this case. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show the ability of this particular grinding file grinder, belt sander, and we're going to show how it can cut through a piece of boron fairly quickly. And then I'm going to show you guys how to grind down some factory, mag plug welds on a particular panel. So I'm going to grab this area down here, and I'm just going to take this belt sander and kind of rip right through this area. We can see the blued area, and I went a little excessive to try and show this on the video. and you can see on the back side I actually have a heat mark from there. But we're basically through this particular material, and you can continue on going through each weld here. And this is for some areas where you can't reach with a drill. This was donated to us by ProSpot today. Got a boron alloyed drill bit on the end of it, and obviously you have to put some sort of lubricant on there to keep the bit cool as you're drilling through it. But not always is this drill accessible around all areas. On a flange it's fine. Some of the rear body panels that Volvo has, this tool would actually come in a little bit more handy, and even in some areas where you have a recessed area on a B-pillar or on an upper rail in the roof panel area, this tool might actually come in a little bit more handy to cut through this particular material. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to move off to the side. And I have a couple of welded pieces here, and these were just some material pieces I just grabbed out of a bin by the ProSpot welding area, and we're going to try and grind down some of these welds. Much of these are like, these plug welds are a lot like the plug welds you would make on a vehicle repair. Obviously some of these are not so good. These are practice welds, but these over here are pretty good, and this one over here is pretty good, and it's kind of high. So I'm not going on a welding lesson here, I'm just trying to show you how to grind down welds. The biggest and most important thing that technicians have to realize is that if we don't have to grind the welds, we should. We're adding excessive heat or extra heat to the area by grinding down the welds, by sanding the welds, or dressing them as it's properly called. So the suggestion is if you don't see the welds, there's no reason to dress the welds. If they're hidden by a fender, if they're hidden by interior panels, you would have to sand or clean this area, most likely with a 3M scuff pad on something like this, on a little small die grinder, so that you're able to clean the area and smooth it out, and then you would put your primers. There's really no reason to grind down on this material. But I'm actually going to take this file sander, and I'm going to try and grind down this weld and get it as smooth as I possibly can. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to utilize this little angle grinder, and then we're going to grab our sander and try and smooth this area out. In an example of an outer body panel, probably like a quarter sail panel where you might have some welds, and show that we can just put a tight wiper body filler if we even actually need it. So. Okay, as you can see, the first two, you can actually still see the outline circle of the original weld. Notice this last one, I stayed a little too long, and this is what happens. You start to get a bevel into the metal. Well, I reduced the thickness of the metal. The object of dressing a weld is to keep it more like these two here versus getting this weld down too flat and actually digging into the material. Now we're going to switch to a less aggressive tool, which is our belt sander with some 80 grit on it. And again, I just want to go over it real quick, and I'm not staying on it too long. Just kind of filing over the top a little bit. And you can see I'm not really grinding too much into it. Just lightly. Now I want to finish with a less aggressive tool. We have another sander here from 3M, and it comes with a roll lock, as you can see here. This is just meant to go over the top. This is actually 50 grit on here. It's a little bit coarser than this 80 grit we had here. So let me show you a 50 grit on this particular weld right here. Once again, just right over the top. Now, moving up in line, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to 80 grit. Now I'm going to finish the area with 80 grit on a DA, or a dual action sander, which is a lot less aggressive, and it spins at a much lower RPM to smooth out the area. Let's see what we get looking like Let's see what we get this material to look like. I don't know if we remember or not, but I know there was a weld here before. Am I correct? You can see where the weld is there, and notice it's almost undetectable right now. Nice and smooth, and I'm not sure if we'll get the right camera angle on this. I'm going to try and hold this as flat as I can and try and move it up and down very, very lightly. I'm going to spin it a little bit so that you guys can see that we really do have a very flat area there. You notice that the 3 welds over here, because they weren't perfect, you can see a couple of little indications of the circular outsides of the welds. But this is also a very smooth area over here, which came up pretty nice. And you can see where the welds originally were and where they are now. The idea is we don't want to strip out the material. Another option we can do with this belt sander is, this has a almost like one of the scuff pads that are kind of attached to this belt here. And what we can do is we can sand this down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take some 50, and we got a big ugly weld here with a blown out hole. Somebody must have been practicing on the welding. But let's see if we can't dress this weld a little bit and see what comes out of it. Now we're going to switch to the least aggressive tool that we have here. This belt sander, file belt sander, with basically a scuff pad on here. You can see it doesn't strip out a lot of the material very quickly. You can still see some of the galvanization that's on this panel. We'll move across this panel. And we'll finish off with the DA. Even with some very bad welds that were made, you can see we can get the panel very, very smooth, or a polished version here. We're dressing the welds, we're not grinding the welds, and we're not digging into the metal. I'm going to try and show this again, that even with these bad welds, I can actually have a very smooth panel. What this would lead us to have is a very smooth area, or a canvas, for the body technician, the cosmetic technician, to be able to put body filler on top of here, a very, very thin coat, and not have a lot of distortion in the panel. Alright guys, as we finish up this area here, where we had drilled out, using the Pro Spot drill, we had drilled out some test resistant spot welds, and we have some nuggets left over. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to take this file belt sander, and we're going to clean off these areas. So 6 resistance spot welds, fairly done fairly quickly with this particular tool. That's a 36 grit on that file sander. Obviously now going to a 50 grit, just to hit it real quick. Once again, we're trying to remove the amount of scratch on this area. We'll take our angle grinder. And just to finish off the area, we're going to take our belt sander back again. And obviously we're not going to use this 36 grit on here. So we're going to go back and we're going to change it back to a nice little belt sander here. As you can see, we polished off the material nice and neatly, and it's ready to put another piece on top of here. and weld it back together again with very little damage to the host panel of the back piece that's originally on the vehicle. I hope this helped everyone understand the importance of using a couple of different tools to be able to grind down or dress welds is a proper terminology for it, to make sure that you have a nice clean surface and you don't ruin or damage the host panel or dig into it. I'd like to thank Sean Collins from 3M for assisting us and letting us use this booth today, ProSpot for giving us the tools that we needed along with some of the 3M tools and their products, and of course Kristen Felder from it's Repair University, am I correct? And once again, we'd like to thank Verifacts Automotive for asking us to do this video today. Thank you very much.